Forgive my black and bloody eye. I am nursing a medical injury, but I did not want to miss this important hearing. And if the light gets too intense, forgive me if I put the sunglasses back on. There is no pain, Mr. Chairman, no anguish, no trauma, no catastrophe worse for any parent than having to bury your child. And my heart and my sympathy go to all of you who lost a child, as I did, and to your children who lost a brother or a sister. Nothing hurts more than losing a child, a family member in the prime of their life, or having them suffer a catastrophic injury or assault because someone else decided that their life didn't matter. You are all here today bravely to tell us how much the lives of your children did matter and do matter, and to ensure that their legacies here on earth, while senselessly cut short or dramatically altered, still live on in your work and in your families. In telling your loved ones' stories, you are advancing the righteous goal of ensuring that no other person suffers the pain of what you have gone through. You will not find a single member in this body who disagrees with your goal or your mission. This is a House, this is a Congress filled on both sides with mothers and fathers, uncles and aunts, grandparents, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. We all want to protect our families and to keep them safe from harm. The terrible crimes that your families have suffered must be universally condemned. Victims of violent crimes, all violent crimes, victims of vehicular homicides, and victims of reckless driving, all of them must be listened to, must be heard, and must be respected. Victims must receive justice for the dreadful crimes that took their loved ones away. Perpetrators must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of our laws. Those who attack police officers or those who attack civilians must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of our laws. No one should be granted a blanket pardon without proof of remorse or rehabilitation or restitution to their victims. And once perpetrators have served their sentence here, if they're in our country illegally, they should be removed from our country. This is not a partisan problem, and nobody should try to turn it into a partisan problem. Tragically, the stories that we hear today can be told of any president. President Bush, President Obama, President Trump, President Biden, each of their administrations released undocumented immigrants who went on to commit violent crimes. We could fill the room with people speaking of their lost family members at the hands of people who came into the country illegally under Democratic and Republican administrations alike. It's not a partisan problem. Everyone knows our immigration system has been broken for decades. Administration after administration, we have lacked the political will to do the hard work of putting together a bipartisan solution. We need an immigration system that makes it a lot harder to come here illegally, or impossible to come here illegally, and a lot easier to come here legally to participate in the American dream. We need an immigration system that gives dreamers and others who have built a productive and law-abiding life in our country a pathway to legal status. Alas, this administration is focused on mass arrests, mass detention, and mass deportation that are dividing our country in unprecedented ways. To achieve this goal, DHS is not focused on going after the worst of the worst. The category of violent criminals quickly exhausted, with Stephen Miller demanding 3,000 draconian immigration arrests every single day. Federal agents simply started indiscriminately rounding up immigrants and American citizens who looked like immigrants, according to the agents. ICE has arrested kindergartners, daycare teachers, parents dropping off their kids at school. They dragged U.S. citizen grandparents out of their homes in their underwear in sub-zero temperatures and ripped children from their beds in the middle of the night, using them as bait to arrest their parents. When ICE does manage to arrest people with criminal records or charges, those are often people who are currently in custody. In many cases, ICE is effectively giving criminals get-out-of-jail-free cards by deporting them in the middle of their criminal sentences, or even worse, deporting them before their trials can even begin, depriving their victims of justice. Also, the agency can simply jack up the president's deportation numbers. This makes it vital to hear from families like yours who have suffered from terrible crimes, to hear about the importance of accountability for those crimes. Your testimony is an important and powerful reminder that the fundamental responsibility of our federal law enforcement and justice system is to keep the people safe and to ensure that no one is ever above the law and no one is ever beneath it. The government must stand on the side of victims of crimes, not their perpetrators. I try to remind Attorney General Bondi of that principle when she appeared here before our committee. That's why we've been so focused on insisting that we hear from the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in their elite pedophile network, the women survivors who our government has failed at every turn. We failed to protect them from the appalling human trafficking and rape ring in the first place. Then our government failed them again by not holding any of Epstein's powerful friends accountable, exposing victims' names while censoring the names of perpetrators and playing outrageous political games with the files in DOJ's possession that they are legally compelled to turn over to Congress and make public. I was happy to hear that the First Lady of the United States agrees with that, and we hope that our committee will heed her call to hold hearings, as Mrs. Trump said, with the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's billion-dollar global sex trafficking ring. This is also why we speak up for all of the people victimized and harmed by the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Not only the over 150 police officers who were bludgeoned, beaten, crushed, and even died because of what happened that day, but also for all of those who have been harmed by the January 6 perpetrators after they got their pardons from President Trump. These pardon recipients have gone on to abuse women and children, plot murders, and commit sexual assault and kidnapping. After January 6 rioter Andrew Paul Johnson got his pardon from President Trump, he repeatedly sexually abused two 12-year-old children and tried to keep them quiet by promising to share with them some of the millions of dollars in restitution that he plans to receive from the Trump administration. If not for President Trump's pardon, these children never would have been molested. Their innocence would not have been shattered by this monster. It is essential to hear from people harmed also by the aggressive police state-style immigration enforcement tactics that have terrified the country. They don't target the worst of the worst. They are the worst of the worst. This includes hearing from the families of the 3 American citizens ICE agents have gunned down point blank in our streets, like Renee Good, the 36-year-old mother and poet who was shot 3 times in the head and body by an ICE officer while she was driving her car. This includes the American citizens who have been profiled, beaten, detained, and even deported by ICE. It includes the police officers who are finding it more difficult to do their jobs because immigrant communities no longer trust them, and prosecutors whose cases are stymied because ICE deports their defendants, witnesses, and victims before their trials can even begin. And it includes the family members of people who have died at the hands of their abusers because they were too afraid to report them to the police for fear they would be deported. Failing to arrest and deport the worst of the worst makes all of us less safe, but so too does allowing federal agents to trample the rights and freedoms of the American people. I want to thank you all again for appearing before us today and hope that we will continue to listen to the voices of everyone whose lives have been so immeasurably altered by the failure of our government to act and enact meaningful policy changes to keep all of our streets and all of our people safe. I look forward to hearing your testimony